Principal Dr. Gyantosh Kumar Jha, whose unprecedented support made us organize more than 50 webinars during this lockdown period. I welcome him and invite him to say a few words.
Thank you, Vinita. Honorable Dr. Aarti Mishra, Scientist E Scientific Analysis Group, DRDO, New Delhi. Dr. Vinita Tuli, Convener Webinar Committee, and all the participants. On behalf of Atmaram Sanathan Dharma College, it's a great pleasure and honor for me to welcome Dr. P.R. Mishra in this webinar on a very relevant topic, digital security in online world. I'm grateful to Dr. Mishra that he has given his valuable time for all of us, and that his lecture is going to be very useful for all of us. Thank you so much, Dr. Mishra. In fact, we all are working with this in digital mode and in online mode, and there is a problem of digital security, and it's a big concern for all of us. So it's good that our webinar committee has organized this webinar on this very useful topic in this pandemic time. So I am thankful to Dr. Vinita Tuli and her team for organizing this webinar, and special thanks to Dr. Raghavan who has arranged this webinar for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Dr. P.R. Mishra received his PhD in number theory from Banaras Hindu University, BHU. He joined DRDO in the year 2003 as Scientist B in Scientific Analysis Group, SAG. Since then, he has been primarily involved in security analysis of crypto algorithms. He has over 15 years of experience of working in cryptology. His main areas of interest are algebra, number theory, analysis of stream ciphers, cryptographic properties of permutations and Boolean functions, and the finite fields. He has been the reviewer and program committee member of prestigious conferences. Currently, he is working as Scientist E in SAG. He has authored several research papers in international conferences and journals of repute. I invite him to speak on the topic, digital security in online world. This topic has gained relevance in the times of the COVID pandemic, as number of cyber crimes have increased during this period. I again welcome you, sir, and invite you to speak on this webinar.
Yeah. So I really feel privileged that I'm giving this opportunity to deliver a lecture on this topic. And as Principal Sir said, it's relevant, but this topic is a bit technical. So there is a complex mathematics involved, and there are many computer science related terms. So what I want to give just a glimpse of what actually the things are and what are the concepts of digital security and how we can use these things in our day-to-day life. So for this, I would like to present some real life examples, and we'll try to connect with the digital counterpart of those real life situations. So I have shared my PPT with Raghavan. So if possible, you can share from your end also, so that the demonstration can be done in real time, or otherwise I can share also. But because I could not set this Zoom on my desktop, so I have to manage with my mobile. Okay, okay, that's fine. So is it possible when I say click on some link to open or to give the demonstration?
We'll try, sir.
Okay, fine. And because this is on the full screen, so if there is a question, then you can convey on my this microphone. So I'll start. Just a minute. Yeah. I think this is just bear with me. Let me set up the things on my side. Yeah. Now you see, this is an example of a real life talk. So what you observe, whenever you invite someone or you talk to someone, you have certain information available prior to your talk. For example, you know whom you are talking to. You also know what you hear is what he says, because the person you are talking to is sitting or standing in front of you, as you see in the picture. So whatever he says, you hear that only. And now whatever you say, he will hear. Okay, and you can well ensure that no one is hearing your conversation except you and him. So this can be done by ensuring that the room is closed and soundproof, or you are in a field alone, in a big field. So you may ensure that no one is hearing your conversation. So the four points are: you know the identity of the person, and you hear whatever he says, there's no doubt, and is able to hear whatever you say, and you can ensure that nobody else is hearing you. Okay, now next, offline secure. So these things are going offline or real time. So when we talk about offline security, so what you can do? So you can, whoever is coming to meet with you, you can scan his or her bag, wallet, etc. Then you can identify who actually is the person. Like, you can ask for his identity card, photo ID, voter card, or anything else, driving license. Then you can also verify his signature if you have the signature before meeting. Then you can verify his authority, that okay, this person is coming to check your documents or audit your form. So in which capacity he is coming, so you can verify his authority by checking his ID card. government ID card. Then whatever he does, you can have a watch on his or her activity. Like you can install a CCTV camera, you can install a mic, so that you can have a constant surveillance on his or her activities. Then when he finishes his work, he may be there to give a service, or he may be there to check something, to investigate something. If the person has come to deliver some service, then at the end you have a summary of the service, that okay, he has performed these tasks. Then you can fix his or her responsibility, like whatever services or whatever check he has done, he is responsible for that. So you may request him or her to sign a service note. So these are the things, these are the security aspects we knowingly or unknowingly we use, we combat in our real life situations. Next. Next slide. Hello. Hello. Am I audible? Yeah. So now let's switch. See, earlier one, the slide, that was what that slide was showing. Two persons were standing and talking to each other. And then we talked about some offline security aspects. Now we are slowly moving to online scenario. The telephonic talk is also one of the sort of online activity. So what you see here in the online talk, so online you can call someone or you can send some message. Okay, so the sender sends, give me rupees 1000. Okay, now because the sender sometimes have no control over what the receiver is receiving, because someone in between may be there to modify your message. So when the receiver receives, it becomes 1 lakh. So the sender requests 1000 rupees. Now receiver receive that he is requested to give 1 lakh rupees. Now suppose he transfers 1 lakh rupees, so anything may happen in between. So the fraud may happen, but that just for now, I'm not discussing this online fraud, but my aim is to show how message can be modified. Second thing, in the real talk scenario, you may identify correctly whom you are talking to. But suppose Radha dials number and talks to Sunil. So she cannot see who is on the other hand or the other end, who is on the line. So she asks, is it really Mohan? So this person, oh sorry, Radha dials number of Mohan. Okay, now on the other end, Sunil is there. So she confirms, is it really Mohan? So Sunil simply replies, hi Radha, Mohan here. So now, because she is not able to see the person, so and the only way to identify the who is on the other end is to identify the voice quality, the voice tone of the person. Now suppose Radha is talking to Mohan, or Radha likes to talk Mohan, but this is the first time for her. So how would she identify the caller? So she simply believes that Mohan is on the other hand. other end. Is clear? So the identification problem, whom you are talking to, and whatever the one person says or sends is received as it is at the other end. These two problems. Can you go to first slide? First slide first. Yeah. See, first you know whom you are talking to, but in that situation, Radha doesn't know whom she is talking to. Second thing, whatever you hear, what you hear is what he says. But in the telephonic talk or telephonic message, sender says, give me rupees 100, 1000, and the receiver receives, give me rupees 1 lakh. So there is a modification. So the two things, first and second, these 2 points are very difficult to ensure in online scenario. Next, yeah. Now in this case, whenever you talk to, you see these two persons are talking, and there is a person in between who is listening to the entire conversation. So in this scenario, suppose you are in a closed room and the room is soundproof and you are talking one-to-one, so you can ensure that nobody is hearing your conversation. But in this scenario, how would you ensure that nobody else is hearing except the receiver one, the authorized person? No third person is listening your conversation. This is also difficult to ensure. If you don't use security mechanism, then it is very difficult to ensure this thing, that no third party or no unauthorized person should listen to your conversation. Okay, and then now you recall service note and responsibility. Now suppose somebody comes and gives you service, and you get him signed a service note, then there is a responsibility that is fixed on that person, so he cannot deny. So suppose on the other day your machine for which you have taken the service doesn't work, then you can call that such and such person visited my office or home and rendered his service, but the service is not satisfactory. But in online case, suppose you say something that, okay, I will give you 1000 rupees. Then you make the other person recall, okay, you promised to pay me rupees 1000. Then he can simply deny, I never promised, because you don't have any mechanism to fix the responsibility. Next. Yeah. Then comes another thing. When you talk one-to-one, there is no such issue that sometimes you're, for say 1 minute or 2 minutes, you're not able to hear whatever he is saying. But in online case, maybe telephonic talk or maybe some online chat or video conference, so it may happen that the session get interrupted for a while, for 1 minute, 2 minutes. There may be connectivity issue, or the line may be congested, that okay, you try to dial somebody's number, but you're not able to be connected to the other person because all lines in this route are busy. So please try later. And then this green color balloon, this person is trying to dial an international number, but the facility is not available on his phone. So these two things are called availability of the resources. And here another thing comes. This person, when he tries to connect to some international number, because this facility is not available, because he is not authorized to use that service. So this is called authorization. So in order to dial international number, you have to have certain international service activated on your phone. So this is called authorization. So for this, you should have proper authorization to use some online service. Next. Yeah. So in the online scenario, it is clear that online scenario is entirely different from offline scenario. So for online security, one has to take PAIN. PAIN is not the literal sense, but the PAIN is an acronym that stands for privacy, authentication, integrity, and non-repudiation. So PAIN is the basic requirement for online security or cryptographic security. Because see, cryptography is the not the thing that is used to encrypt the message or to hide the messages, but now it's a bigger term. So in order to deploy certain data security, one has to take these 4 aspects of cryptography, and others are availability and authorization. So in the previous talk, in the previous slide, I talked about availability and authorization. Previous slide. Previous. Yeah, this one. So this person, the blue balloon, here he is facing availability issue, and the second person is having authorization problem. So I'll be coming these aspects one by one. Next. Yeah. So the first thing is privacy, then authentication, integrity, non-repudiation. So privacy, what is privacy? Privacy or confidentiality means you want to hide your message from the non-authorized person. So what are the ways how you can achieve this? Okay, so you can achieve this by transforming the message, or you can achieve this by hiding the message, or you can achieve this by encrypting the message. So what is encryption? I'll come to later. But the first thing, transforming the message. So your message is written, suppose, in English. So you transform it in some other code or in some other language, so that the person standing before you and he is not authorized to get the information, so he may not be able to get that information because of this transformation. So like, see here, this Babaji is saying, so you can observe that this Tilak, this Babaji is from some southern part of the India. So he is telling something in Tamil. This is Tamil script. And the poor fellow, this is from some foreigner, he is not getting anything out of that. So whatever he is saying is not a clear English, it's a transformed version of the information, and whatever he tries to convey to the authorized person, that is the person who understands Tamil, he can get the information, but this poor fellow will not get anything out of that. So this is the way you can achieve privacy or confidentiality. But see, this is not a very good way, because the transformation, suppose this fellow is not knowing the Tamil, but somehow if looking at his appearance, one can guess about his region, that is, he might be coming from some southern part of the India, and if he records his audio and keeps on trying with some interpreter or translator, that okay, is this Tamil or this, and somehow he figures out that okay, Tamil, and using an interpreter he can get the message whatever he is telling. So the transformation is very easy to defeat. So we come to the second point, hiding the message. Next. Yeah. So this red part, beauty is always visible. So this message is hidden in this red square. Can you figure it out? Something is written in this block.
Yes, beauty is sometimes hidden.
Yeah. So this message is hidden, and unless you very carefully see, it will not be visible. So this is very crude way to hide, but there are smarter way to hide. You can hide some message in an image, and image will not get distorted or tampered. It will appear to you just like the original image, but the message will be hidden inside that. So this is one way, and it is called steganography. But from the security point of view, this is also not a very good technique. The most reliable technique, or the mostly used technique, is encryption. So what is encryption? The encryption is just like a transformation, but this transformation is performed with some secrecy, with some secret parameter, and the design of transformation is such that it is very difficult for the person who is not having that secret part. Whoever is not knowing that secret, it is nearly impossible to extract the information out of it from the message which is encrypted. Okay, so encryption is not a simple transformation, it is something else. This is something more. Okay, so the 3 points I have covered: transforming, hiding, and encryption. So for the security, we mostly use encryption. So here you see PGP. PGP is very good, pretty good privacy. This is a package for email security or online security. And in the PGP message, you see this message is encrypted with certain key. Next. Yeah. So when we encrypt, we can choose to our secret by our choice. Like the technique you use in transformation, you can choose to keep that secret. Like what I do, I take my message and I shift every letter by 2. Like I write C in place of A, I write D in place of B, I write E in place of C, then the entire message will be jumbled. So now you choose to keep this process secret. Okay. Now it will do for you, but When suppose you do this and the other person who is receiving is doing the same thing or the reverse thing of this, and you share this among three four person, and that among these three four person, one of these persons leaks your strategy to an adversary, to an unauthorized person. So what will happen? Your entire security will go in a moment. It's okay. So the thing is, if you choose to keep a process secret, then this is called security by obscurity. You obscure something, you don't show how I am working, then what I claim, my strength lies in your ignorance. Until and unless you know what I am exactly doing, I am secure. But the moment you know what I am doing, I will lose all of my security. So then comes the principle due to Kirchhoff. Kirchhoff was a mathematician, a scientist. So what he proposed, I am secure as long as my key is secure. So let me explain this notion. What I do, I don't care whether my process is secret or public. I use a small portion or small string or small passphrase for the secrecy, and I public my process entirely, except that passphrase, password, or the secret key. Now I claim, do whatever you can. This is how I proceed. These are the processes, and I don't tell you what my key is. And still, you cannot get my message until and unless you have in possession with my key. You cannot extract anything out of that. So this is Kirchhoff principle. I am secure as long as my key is secure. I don't care about the process at all. So this is the well accepted principle in modern days. So security by obscurity was used in olden days, but this notion is not used or very rarely used. The most common principle is Kirchhoff's principle, where it is, in other way, it is saying that the entire security should lie in your small secret that is called key. Now, what is the advantage? Suppose you are doing 1,000 things during the transformation and you keep everything secret. So keeping 1,000 things secret, it's very difficult. Now managing, say, one line sentence or a few letters, 10 letters, 16 letters, or 40 letters is very easy. And keeping that small thing secret will give you the security. So this is, in the other word, this is very beneficial for cryptographic management. And there are many other logic also why we should not use security by obscurity. So now, because I don't care about the process, so I can make process public, or even I can make standards also. So standards, what? Like, see, these are the four things are standard algorithms. So this means the process is public to public, and it is known for years. I think about 20 years, 25 years. So you see, the mostly used algorithms are AES 256, IDEA, Triple DES, and RC6. These are the most commonly, but there are dozens of algorithms, or more than 100 algorithms which are public, but these are mostly used. So what we do? We do certain mathematical transformation, but those transformation involve keys. Now you can see here the key between these two plaintests. You see, now this key is getting into the various transformation, and the transform message is coming as a ciphertext at the end, the lowest part, the ciphertext. Okay, so this way AES stands for Advanced Encryption Standard. So everything is public, and this is, I tell you, this is very, very secure. So unless you know anything about key, you cannot extract anything about plaintext, no matter how strong computing facility you have. Even the most powerful supercomputer, I think that is with either US or China. So there is a close competition between these two countries. So the current, the most powerful supercomputer is with, I think, China. So even if you use that supercomputer, you cannot extract anything about your plain message or the original message unless you know the key, and the key is just 16 or 32 character long. That's all. Next. Now I come to authentication. Authentication means who the other person is, whom you are talking to. So in the digital world, in the online world, for security, you need to have a very good authentication mechanism, because sometimes you are not seeing the person, or even if you see the person, you cannot guarantee that the person is actually on the other side. For example, you say this session. This session I might have previously recorded, and in place of me, somebody else is lip syncing on my behalf. So this is possible. Then you will never come to know that on this side, on the other side, I am actually talking or somebody else. So you need to have, no, see, here the purpose is served. The talk is delivered. It doesn't matter. But if suppose you are involved with certain transaction, monetary transaction, or you are conveying some sensitive information, then these things matter. Authentication matters. So what you do, you may ask for certain password or passphrase. Password or passphrase are same. Okay. Only the superficial differences are there. Password may be anything, it may be random or something, and passphrase are some phrases, they are longer and they are easy to remember, but the role is same. So for me, password and passphrase is same. Then biometric, your retina scan, your fingerprint, and your face, your voice, and you might be having some token like metro tokens, metro card. You might be having some OTP with your authorized mobile, assuming that the mobile is in possession of the authorized person. So these things are used for authentication: password, passphrase, biometric, token, OTP, etc., etc. So for online transaction in banking, there is a rule 2 out of 3. So what are the 3 things? What you are, and what you know, and what you possess. So what you are, something that belongs to you entirely, identifies you in the digital world. Like no one else will have the fingerprint like you. It's unique to you. This is your characteristic. Then your retina scan, your voice, something which is your very own characteristic that identifies what you are. Second thing, you must be knowing something which is shared to you only, like password or passphrase, okay, or anything else, or code word. Then something you possess, like token, metro token. You possess the metro token and you're allowed to enter the station. OTP, mobile phone. So something you possess. So these things, there are three things: what you are, what you know, and what you possess. So it is rule. This is a thumb rule that you should use 2 out of 3 for a good authentication. And you see, banks use these things. Suppose you go to your ATM, then the second and the third are used. What you know is your PIN, and what you possess is your ATM card. Now they are shifting to the first two, what you are and what you know. Then it may happen in near future that you should not keep your ATM card all the time whenever you go to an ATM. Then you will be asked who you are. You have to put your finger on some biometric scanner. Then it will ask your PIN. So first two will be used. So it will allow you to withdraw the money from the ATM machine. Is it clear? Okay. Next. Next, please. Yeah. So I have talked about something about encryption, AES, and authentication. How we authenticate in digital world. Okay. So this is one thing what we do. So let me explain first very briefly what happens when you put your PIN or password. Suppose I tell you that, okay, this is my password, then what you'll do? You'll write some my password at certain place, and you memorize, and whenever I tell my password, you'll match. Okay, his password was ABCDEFG. I'm telling password ABCDEFG. Okay, matching. Then okay, you are the correct person. Otherwise, if not matching, now it happens. Suppose you store my password in the ATM machine itself or in the server, so somebody hacking the server or ATM machine will be able to extract my PIN or password. Because see how you store the things. You store in certain hard disk or in certain micro SD card like you use in your mobile phones, or you use hard disk card or pen drive or certain dedicated flash drives. So these drives are always readable. So anybody can read and extract your password. So what we do, instead of password, we use a specifically designed function that is called hash. So what hash does? See, hash is something which is small but having all the characteristics of your message. For example, you just see this is the juicer machine, and you put one orange, one mango, one banana, and put one orange, banana, mango, or sweet lime also. So these 4 different fruits, you churn this machine and it will give you fruit juice, mixed fruit juice, and you take just 10 ml of that juice. So that 10 ml juice will have extract of each of the fruit: mango, banana, sweet lime, and orange. Okay, so this is called hash. So hash will have fixed length. Fixed length means 20 character, 30 character, 40 character. For all the messages, the length will be fixed, and this output will have certain characteristic of your message, but you cannot find. And second thing, with your this 10 ml juice, you will not get any information about the size or appearance of the fruit. So going in the reverse way is utterly difficult, computationally difficult for hash function. Okay, so see, mathematically what I do, I give a message to the hash function and it will produce a digest. See, suppose I give message fox, and this is a function, and see, here I have written the heading hash function, but inside this block, in the yellow block, I have written cryptographic hash function. So hash function with this are having these properties, but cryptographic hash function will have some additional properties designed for cryptographic security or whatever, digital security, whatever you say. So this is a cryptographic hash function. You give a message fox, so this will produce this much bigger digest, that is the value. This is whatever is coming out of this juicer machine is the digest. So you see digest is, I'm reading DFCD 3454 in the last one is 2D17. This is the hash value of fox, but looking at the hash value itself, can you guess that message will be fox? No, you don't have any clue about the message. Okay, and second property, this suppose this is the method, the red fox jumps over the blue dog, and this is the cryptographic hash function. You have this hash. Now that this thing, the message I have just tampered. Okay, can you see this over OVER in the second message? This is OUER. This is tampered. And now see, the digest has changed drastically. So even a small amount of change will change your digest drastically. So this helps to achieve the security we require from the hash function. So now what we do, instead of saving your password directly to the machine or to the storage media, we store the hash value. Okay, now suppose your password is fox, so the first one, purple, this value will be saved in your machine. So whenever you input your password, the hash function will be calculated again, and this will be matched with the stored value. And if this matches, you will be allowed, otherwise your access will be denied. Okay, now suppose someone steals the machine, so he will only get the hash value, and from the hash value he cannot guess your password, so he will not be able to extract any meaningful information out of your data. So he cannot go to your password. So this is how we use hash function and achieve authentication in digital world. Next. By the way, how much is the time left? Hello?
Sir, around 10 minutes. It was
Okay.
yeah.
So is it clear whatever I'm telling?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So if there is any confusion, you can interrupt me in between also.
Okay.
So like encryption algorithm, we have well-known hash functions also, like MD5, RIPE-MD, SHA SHA 256, SHA 512, and this one, this KECCAK. This is not KECAK, this is KECHAK. This is pronounced as KECHAK. So this is KECHAK function and SHA-3 function. So these are the well-known hash function, and nowadays the third and fourth are mostly used, and people are switching to this the last one, KECHAK and SHA-3. These are believed to be the most secure hash functions. So what this function, just a minute. Hello? Hello? Yes? हाँ? हेलो बोलिए. Hello. Sorry for the interruption. So this is a well-known hash function, and this is believed to be very secure in modern times, and this works on a sponge principle. What a sponge does: suppose you have some message, like you have a liquid in a pot, and you put the sponge on this liquid. So what it does, it absorbs the liquid inside it. Now once the entire liquid is absorbed, now if you squeeze the sponge, it will release some liquid, and if you squeeze it completely, it will release the entire liquid. So this is the principle this KECHAK function works. So what it does, it makes slices of your message. Okay, so the first slice will be given to this first, see, F is written like this oval shape thing, F. So this is the function. The message first block is given to F, then this block is combined with the second one and the third one, fourth one, and it is giving a fixed thing out. So in this sense, it is taking the message byte by byte. So this is called absorption. It is absorbing the message byte by byte, word by word, or block by block. And when the entire message is processed through this function, we call that the entire message is absorbed in this absorption function. Then we again call this function, and now this function gives me output. So now we say that we are squeezing the function, and the squeezing phase, whatever it returns is the hash value. So this is a very well-known principle, and the most secure, believed to be the most secure principle for hash function, which is used for authentication. And because I have little time left, I cannot go in detail of SHA-256 512, but the most recent one I have told. Now I come to the vulnerability. So see, you use very good hash function, and you use very good encryption algorithm, and you use very good very resilient system and very reliable system with having a very good availability. Still you can be a victim of, you can fall prey to online fraud. If you are not careful enough, then you may fall prey to these frauds, or because whenever there is a vulnerability, you think, you assume that someone is there to exploit that vulnerability. Like see, Can you read the web address written in the slide? www.du.ac.in. Okay. So what we tend to do? Suppose someone sends a link in our mailbox, we click and open. So this we should not do, because whatever is visible here may not be the actual link. Somebody might be making a fool of you. So just click on that link. Please click on that link. Okay. Something is opening.
Yes.
What is that? Yeah. And can you read the name of site?
Fool.com.
Fool.com. So actually you clicked on du.ac.in, but you were taken to fool.com. So you please return to the original site. So whatever this link is showing you is not the correct information. You are redirected to fool.com. So what you should do? You should copy the link. You can copy the link from here and paste it in the browser. You should not click and open the link. Okay. Next. So like this, I tell you something about Zoom also, because Zoom is very I can say very infamous for its security. It is very convenient, no doubt. I'm also using Zoom, but it is from the very beginning during the lockdown, or even in from January itself, this Zoom was giving troubles in some way or other to its users. Okay, so I very quickly highlight something. These are the some features of Zoom. So like this is it can work in hybrid mode. It's very easy to share something. Distributed network you can use, firewall compatible, client application role-based user security. So Zoom boasts of a very high level of security, but what this is authentication mechanism, features, see, meeting features, in meeting security. So to see this Zoom infrastructure, you can quickly scroll through the slides. Next. Yeah. Real-time media processing. Next. Firewall compatibility. So these are the security features. You see, very good security features. Next. Role-based user security. So it boasts of very high level of security. Single sign-on. Next. Authentication out. Next. These are the Zoom features. Next. Meeting features. Next. This is authentication, very good authentication, meetings. Next. Remote privilege access. Next. Next. The security features. Keep on scrolling. Next. This is a very good codec. Security features. Next. Certificate. See, just before that, previous slide. Zoom has got certifications also, very good certifications. Next. Yeah. Now see what it claims and what it does. कथनी करनी में अंतर. So first thing, Zoom knows what you are paying attention, if you are paying attention to your call. So suppose I start speaking like this. So Zoom will come to know. Okay, because I am looking into the camera, this Zoom is allowing, otherwise it will come to know I'm not paying attention. So this they claim as a feature, but suppose you are taking some online class and some participant is not paying attention, then it will come to know. Then data collection and data sharing. It collects your data, name, physical address, email address, phone number, job title, many information, much information, and it shares also to the third party. Okay, and there is a camera hacking bug. It used to be there in Zoom's earlier version. Next quickly. Yeah. Zoom browser hack automatic. If you in the Mac version, it happened that if you uninstall Zoom, it would automatically reinstall itself and flashes the meeting. Your meeting starts. So this was a great surprise for Zoom users. Then these things, you see, these are harms, and many countries banned Zoom, many governments banned Zoom. And these are the advices given by Kaspersky in antivirus form for Zoom users. And you know, many of the data of lakhs of users on Zoom was shared to dark web on dark web to the criminals also. And the big servers of Zoom are sitting in the China. So you see how dangerous Zoom is. Now they are claiming that they are US firm, okay, but all the resources, major resources are sitting, they're established in China. And recently they have claimed that Zoom 5 is very secure, but still you have to pay for that, and the normal Zoom is not still that much secure. Okay. So quickly, I tried to give some idea about Zoom. There is hardly any time left. So at this point, I conclude my talk. These are the references for Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your lecture. Sir, now we'll take up the questions. The
Okay.
first question is, how to be more secure with new forms of digital payments like Bitcoin? This is
Actually,
from Palak Gupta.
Bitcoin has totally different concept. It is called blockchain. So blockchain security is a different notion, and it is not being used in banking sector now. Second thing, blockchain is not recognized by the government. So my advice is not to go for blockchain or use not to use these currencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, because these currencies are not recognized. So, and there is no control of government. So if any fraud or something happens with you, then you cannot complain about this also. And the infrastructure you are using, so there is no guarantee of the security of that infrastructure. Though they claim this is very secure, but no one has verified. Okay. So unless you know everything and you are not pretty sure about the security, you should not go for Bitcoin, or the other way also, you should not go for Bitcoin because this is not recognized.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is, explain more on blockchain.
Blockchain is a different concept, and it will take a lot of time. So you may talk to me offline, but this time I can't discuss. I just give you an overview what blockchain does. Actually, you see, whenever you do a transaction over the banking system, you have to connect to the bank server, and bank will authenticate you. In the blockchain, there is no such central authority. The blockchain manages itself. Blockchain, the trust is based on the majority of the stakeholders. So this is a self-sustaining network, and there is no central authority like bank in between, and there is a ledger. But because, see, in the banking system, the ledger is with the bank. Now you cannot keep the ledger at the central place because there is no central authority. So the ledger is distributed among all the stakeholders, all the participants. And as I said, this is a self-sustained network, so it works on working is based on Merkle chain and use of hash functions to identify, to authenticate the person in the chain and to authenticate the transactions happening over the chain, but there is no central controlling authority. This much only I can say right now. And for further or detailed information, you can contact me offline.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for sharing very relevant and pertinent information with all of us. The session by you on digital security in online world was very informative, and everyone is going to benefit from it. I'm thankful to our principal for constant guidance and positive support. I thank Dr. Raghavendra, the program coordinator, for this webinar, organizing this webinar for all of us. I'm also thankful to my entire webinar committee. Thank you, sir.